inner conflict occurs when more than one concept feels unable to coexist with one another. When I feel there are two concepts, two situations, events, facts, perceptions that I feel I cannot reconcile amongst them. I feel inner conflict. Tension between multiple concepts. Striving to achieve victory over the other. Each of them feels that the other or the others are an enemy of themselves. As in, one cannot coexist with the other. When this occurs, the concepts, perceptions, things, events, facts, feelings within me are in a form of tension. They conflict. There's friction between them because they feel they cannot coexist. When these perceptions reflect reality, our version of reality, we seem unable to accept reality itself. And some of these multiple concepts often are not perceived as concepts, as situations, as facts, as events that we hold. we have concepts and events and facts and perceptions, beliefs within us that we have not identified. And often, and especially because often we do not identify them, we do not recognize them, when I do not identify or recognize them, I feel it is a must. It is a must. It is something that must occur. It is an anchor of reality. And when this anchor feels threatened by another fact, by another event, perception, another engagement we have with the world, it tends to retaliate and attempt to assert its existence, to assert its value. Over the other. If I allow such a tension to occur between two inner objects, if I feel this tension, I can understand it. I can grok it. And truly feel its nature. I notice it is common in my past behavior to feel a conflict between two objects in myself and to attempt to side with one of them, to help one of them achieve victory over the other, to remove the other one from myself. Perhaps because I identify more deeply with one of them, such as these objects that at times I have not yet identified. That are unconscious. Then I notice if I if I choose to not side with one of these objects in particular, or with some of these objects in particular, and instead I feel the tension occurring within them. And I feel the concepts themselves and how they oppose each other or produce friction with each other. I am accepting that both objects within me are true. And they are true. If I accept the union of them, the whole of the multiple objects, and the relationship perhaps seemingly unpleasant between them, these objects can meld, they can join, they can combine and produce a new state in myself. That includes these multiple objects in myself. It is, I feel, the tendency a human being has to side with particular objects within them, within him or her, preferentially to other objects within me, particularly to new objects I encounter, the human being encounters in the world, in life. that we reject a part of ourselves. That I deny a part of myself. And I feel that this denial, this hiding, this rejection of parts of ourselves can lead to suffering. Stuckness. In life. Stuckness of flow. As the combination of the multiple objects when allowed to merge, it becomes a simple continuation of the flow of one's life, of one's development as a being. An example I feel now is that of starving children in a remote land. At times, I notice a human being feels pain or shame or anger or sadness. Because they know this is occurring. And they do not want that to occur. These two concepts joined in the human, that of children are starving in a remote land, and I do not want children to starve in a remote land. Often seem to result in the human being choosing to side with their want that children are not starving in a remote land. this at times brings up, as I mentioned, pain, sadness, anger, shame, blame. And it can be directed in any way one chooses. This feeling, by reaction, the human being tends to move it, project it onto something else outside, into the governments that misuse their resources, onto the neighbors of the children who are starving, who are not starving and who could help them but who don't, or onto or as shame unto myself, into the shame that, for example, that I have food to eat and they do not. And that perhaps at times I have food and I choose not to eat it because I do not like it. Or at times it is channeled as indignation towards God or nature, or onto the cruel nature of human beings, to the pettiness that at times is present in it. I feel all of these redirections of energy are distractions, are excuses to avoid feeling the tension between these two objects within oneself. When one feels something truly within oneself, when one feels the tension between one's inner objects, one can feel into it and develop that relationship, and find some resolution. This resolution is completely one's own. It does not depend on the world. The choice of whether to and how to merge inner conflicting objects is entirely one's own. Possible resolutions for the example I mentioned are: one could choose to devote one's own energy to help with situation that children are starving in remote lands. One can choose to move in that direction. One can choose to divert resources in that direction. Perhaps to travel to that land and find solutions. Perhaps to find others who are helping or attempting to help that situation and help them in a chain of help. One can choose to let go of one's own want for children not to be starving in remote lands. One can choose, as at times happens, to forget that there are children starving in remote lands. Forgetting is not a conscious act, I believe. And as such, this may not actually be a resolution, but rather a hiding of the conflict until the next time it comes up in our mind. For I have noticed that I, as a human being, hold an amazing capacity for memory in the conscious and in the unconscious planes. And by analogy, I feel that other human beings have a similar powerful memory as mine. In all, the two main resolutions in this example are two. Do I choose to help change the situation of the world so that the energy of this want we have inside us can be moved in that direction, can be expressed in that direction? Or we can consciously choose to let go of this want. So that energy is no longer leaking and trying to move through that particular channel. When neither of these resolutions occur, when a resolution between the conflicting objects does not occur, the energy leak, I call it, of that want remains. It remains stuck, not being expressed out into the world, yet still there, stuck. The series of manifesting in the world. While this is the case, this conflict is merely being postponed, if not dealt with. It remains within us, and it leaks our energy, because in that particular conflict, we are undecided on what to do. Express the energy or let go of the energy. One or the other. Postponing our inner conflicts. Is like leaving a piece of trash within us, an uncleaned room. long overdue laundry. Hair on a couch that one keeps meaning to clean. At each inner conflict, we hold the power of choice. The choice to feel the conflict, move the conflict, develop the tension and these objects. And grow whatever comes from it. Or to postpone it. And leave it hidden somewhere within. When we hold patterns within us, such as emotional patterns, such as shame when learning about children starving in remote lands, or when one feels sadness or grief, even grief or even anger, at remembering a human being with whom we interacted strongly and who has moved away from our lives or does not hold the same role in our lives as we would want them to. These emotional patterns at times are forms of holders of that energy we have postponed. That energy does not I intuit that this energy does not remain within alone. It is an object, and emotions that flow around it will tend to form patterns around it in its vicinity. A common emotion we feel when we want to hide something from others is shame. We want to hide it. We do not want to know about it. We do not even want to see it. It's like a scab around this energy. when there's anger around it, I feel it is like a guardian that has developed around the energy. The energy often holds pain because tension at its primal is felt as pain, is felt as discomfort, as something shifting, a shift within us, a change in us. There is resistance to change, and this resistance can be felt as pain, as discomfort. If this pain is strong, at times our being chooses to envelop it with anger, like a guardian that protects this pain, that does not allow the pain to be felt. So when it is close to being felt, it anger can channel this energy somewhere else and somewhere else, wherever else, not in there because it hurts. Yes, these emotions often protect the pain within the pain. It is at times pride that covers it. It can be shame, it can be anger. I feel sadness is different. Sadness feels as an emotion to me that signals that something is moving, that the pain is moving, that it's washing. Grief, however, may perhaps signal an energy that is stuck perhaps in a non-acceptance of whatever is being grieved about. A loss, a death, a loss. The non-acceptance of loss. That seems to me to be the shape, the truth of grief. Diverting the tension, the conflict, the pain one feels onto other places, moving channels somewhere to the outside world, I feel is a reaction of the unconscious, perhaps protective, because even at the physical plane, when pain happens, our unconscious reacts and wants to protect. It feels protective. The body wishes to survive. It holds. It protects. It cries for help. It rushes adrenaline to make us feel less pain and be available to be more active if needed. There are reactions. We are not choosing these reactions, but they help. And so I feel it is with emotions. When there is an emotional pain, the reaction of the unconscious is to protect, to cry for help, to ensure there is perhaps no deeper damage to ourselves. I extrapolate that it occurs as well with thoughts and beliefs. That when we hold opposing mental objects within us, one tends to side with one of them and attempt to prove the other false, to prove the other worthless, so that that object can stand true, can remain true. Belief systems. Belief systems. And from that I see society at times arguing with each other, trying to prove one side of the argument, trying to win, trying to prove that I am right. And often one does not consider that the truth in the form that it takes in the mental plane may be perhaps not one nor the other object, but perhaps some amalgamation of the many. I see conflicts with words along the internets, of arguments of wanting to prove someone wrong or my own correctness, as these objects, these beliefs that are trying to win, they are trying to find resolution in the outer world, even if within oneself one has resolution of beliefs. In our collective self, we also have multiple objects that can conflict with one another. And I see much of the conflict in this world, in this outer world, amongst the units of our collective, as the manifestation of that tension, of that attempt at resolving, at finding a solution, at amalgamating the several, at finding, well, from all of these parts we have, conflicting parts, what is that object that actually reflects reality? I see the efforts of science as an attempt to find such resolutions to these multiple truths, to find what is the truth, as opposed to the multitudinous thoughts and beliefs and concepts and frameworks and algorithms that we have made. What is the truth? And in the collective as well, we hold postponed conflicts, tensions we choose to hide, tensions we choose to be angry about, tensions we choose to not accept. Like children starving in remote lands. And as a collective, I see that this tension is not fully resolved. Because I see energy that moves in that axis of helping or unhelping children starving in remote lands. I still feel there is a collective emotion of shame, of injustice, of indignation, of anger, of grief about it. In our world. And the emotions of my human being are mingling and mixing and churning and turning and flowing together with the emotions of the collective. Beyond humanity, I intuit, yet inclusive of humanity as a collective. I feel it important to recognize that each of us has the choice to resolve the conflicts within us. In doing so, we can heal our own energy leaks. Our being can find a more wholesome flow, inner flow, a more wholesome functionality. And I feel this can help each of us grow and develop. For the absence of hidden objects hidden with shame or with fear or with anger. Allows us clarity of consciousness. That we can then utilize in our lives so that we can direct our energy where we consciously choose to. And not as much where it unconsciously leaks. Discernment is required. The capacity to identify one's own often nebulous emotions, beliefs, intuitions within us. To identify them, to feel them, and to progressively understand them more fully. Just as language has progressively evolved from the identification of only very few colors, black, white, then red, then a further, finer discernment into yellows, oranges, ochres, greens, into the multitude of greens, onto the recognition of blue and of the multiple shades of blue. Refining progressively to more colors in the language than I know. Violet, magenta, pink, burgundy, crimson, scarlet, ochre, strawberry, hot pink, seduction pink, green, grass green, emerald green, Caribbean waters green, mint green, dark green, teal, turquoise, aqua, sky blue, electric blue, ocean blue, dark blue, navy blue, indigo, violet, purple, fuchsia, lilac, cream, bone, gray, dark gray, light gray, storm gray, sunlight yellow versus sunset yellow. Just as language has progressively refined to include all of these, our own consciousness can progressively refine to include more and more and richer states. And this discernment is allowed by one's own allowance, acceptance, curiosity, focus onto these conflicts that occur within us. As they together necessarily, upon resolving the tension, create a new state. Within us. So allowing ourselves to find new states, to create new states, refines our consciousness into feeling, into experiencing what may be perhaps not this and not this, which feels somehow not compatible, but somehow